What's going on, everybody? I'm Doug, and welcome to Doppler'S Gear Garage for our weekly Saturday morning live stream. If we haven't met, my name is Doug, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. Got a new little toy here today, the Rockman pedal from the good people over at Dunlop. And the focus of today is going to be talking about utilizing delay. And I'm going to do something a little bit different than I normally do, because quite often I'm kind of like a mad preparation person. And in the midst of kind of a busy week, and also kind of thinking through how I wanted to present this, I really, usually I'm such a mad preparation freak. I thought today I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of run and gun with this whole delay concept and kind of pull up a track here that I'm going to play along with. And I'm going to use different delay textures and kind of walk through what I'm thinking and kind of how I'm applying the different types of delays that I like to use, so you can kind of, rather than my just kind of talking about there's this box and there's that box and this one does this and this one does that, more amount of kind of getting under the hood of kind of how I think about approaching it, and what I'm thinking as I'm choosing different things, and hopefully that will be help to you. So first of all, let me just do a little roll call. Paul, good morning. Great to see you. Thank you for joining us, my dear friend. It's a pleasure to see you as a regular around here. I am thrilled and humbled. Good morning to you, sir. Dan, long time no see. How does Arpeggios coming along, my friend? Chris Alexander, you managed to make it. I love it. So the crazy thing, these little inlays are actually little Kramer headstocks, which I think is actually a very cute idea. Paul Richard, I'm really looking forward to your lesson today, because we're going to spend some time kind of helping you build your own universe. It's going to be really cool. Guitar universe, that is. All right, so what I've got is the Rockman pedal here, and actually, since I've kind of got a clean sound dialed up here, I'm going to pull back all the delay and reverb, and I'm going to do that. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm using an application called Console, which is basically the equivalent of a digital mixing board, which is basically if you're using something from Universal Audio as an audio interface, it basically is a mini recording console, and it allows me to kind of pull up plugins, a number of which that we're going to mess around with that are actual emulations of real world effects. Some things inside the box, like if you are a Pro Tools, or I started to say Digidesign person, there are a number of stock effects that are plugins only. But the great thing about the UA world is most of the stuff that they make is a digital emulation of some of the coolest gear on the planet. My go-to favoriteest delay in the world is the Cooper Time Cube. Let me pull the modulation off of the Rockman there. So the great thing about delay, kind of like compression, it can cover a multitude of sins. And, what I've got is I've got this lovely Kramer here. I'm in the I'm going to go up to the number 2 pickup selection. So if I'm looking for kind of some sort of really spanky sort of a vibe like that, it's a great place to go. By the way, we're also going to incorporate a little reverb here and there. Because we'll be adding that on top of the delay. But again, that adds that other dimension, and it would be kind of silly to talk about delay and not add a little bit of reverb. All right, so this Cooper Time Cube, first of all, let me talk a little bit about the adjustment that I need to make here. So this is a stereo delay that I've got up and running. And I want this instance of it. Come on, there we go. So you can hear that rightmost delay does not have enough repeats on it. So I'm going to Sorry, my leftmost delay. There you go. So one of the things about using a stereo delay when you're setting up the repeats that's super, super important is when you've got a shorter delay, you actually add more repeats, because the longer delay, if you have 2 repeats on a longer delay and you have 2 repeats on a shorter delay, that second repeat of the shorter delay happens in time before the second repeat of the longer delay. So you kind of need to even them out, which is what I was doing there. Now, we were talking about compressors. Hang on a sec. Let me just say hi to a couple of different people. Mike Rand, good morning, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you. Albert. So Albert and I were geeking out. We both went to the Dream Theater show this past week. And I'll speak for myself, but I got my backside whooped in the most wonderful way. If you haven't seen this tour or get a chance to see this tour as it comes through, just go. Insane guitar tones, insane playing, insane band, and just a great mix. Dr. Phil, thank you so much for the coffee. Thank you very much on the Kramer. Phil sent through this lovely bag of coffee that I've been partaking in, and it's awesome, and it does have a pecan flavor. Thank you so much, my friend. Our pages are coming along. There we go. Great to hear that. James, good morning to you. Thanks so much for joining us. Hang on. There we go. Let's see if I can click on the right button. There we go. All right. Awesome. And by the way, your questions are welcome. So when I think about using the delay, the concept is to try and get your main sound such that in the act of using the delay, you're not losing the essence of whatever you're trying to get happening. Now, the interesting thing is, Brett, good morning, and John, hello, Shane, hello, sneaking in there. Oh, thanks, Brett, I appreciate that. So one of the things that I traditionally do in a live rig, and we'll talk about application-based delay, and then there's kind of like, hey, I'm in a live setting. Do I really want to be tethered to my pedal board, changing delay presets every song and every section if there's some sort of metric modulation where you're like, oh, I need to follow that modulation. By the way, a metric modulation, term of the day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's a metric modulation. So if you wanted your delays to switch when you do a metric modulation as you go from song to song and have the BPM chase the actual subdivision of the song if your band's playing with a click or something like that, or your drummer has super steady time, the thing is you're married to your pedal board kind of the whole night. So generally speaking, most people have a tendency to just kind of set a kind of a washy thing happening in the background. In a minute, I'm going to catch up with the chat here, so please forgive me. Chris, Dream Theater will be making that show up on the backside of the tour. There was a sickness in the band, a cold that got attended to, but not in time to make that show happen. All right, so the deal is, as my case in point, what works in the background as a kind of a works on anything delay, for that, when I get the, that actually kind of worked better than I was hoping it would. But let me turn it up, and there it's just a distraction. So the kind of, it works with everything. Holy cow, there goes the mouse. Come on, come back here, you little guy. It works with everything. Delay doesn't work in all situations. That's why, again, I wanted to contrast the live playing and the studio side of things. So we're going to start off with, again, I've got this Cooper Time Cube delay set up, and I'm a big fan on setting up a stereo delay for a couple of reasons. Why? One is that, first of all, we got 2 ears, so the more you can kind of tickle both ears around the stereo field, there's something that happens when you hear stuff in stereo. It gives you an emotive feeling. That is to say, if I play like this, I'm going to turn up the delay a little bit, and as I do that, it just somehow more than just, let's see, I can pan these guys, so I'm going to pan them to the center. So I'm going to do the same exact thing with both delays to pan to the center. And now all of a sudden, that emotion, well, I'm cheating here because, well, hang on, I need to do one more thing. So the Rock Man is actually running in stereo, so let me pan those into the center as well. So now the guitar's in everything's in the center. And by the way, I think the Rock Man is purposely set up when it's on the outside like that, that it's designed to be out of phase, and that's part of how it gets that wide stereo split. So when I bring it in like this, you're going to notice you're going to get a little bit of what they call combing, a comb filter. In any case, but for the case in point, let me just make it so I'm just panned a little bit left and right. But you don't get that same beautiful kind of feeling when you've got... So the funny thing is I have never done what I just did there, where the guitars are panned left and right and the delay is in the center. Which is actually kind of a cool effect, so keep that in your back pocket in case you ever need to do it. However, putting the delays hard left and hard right does so much to just kind of add to the vibe of what you're trying to do. So, now I also do something a little interesting, and I can't necessarily tell you when and why I started doing it, but I think about things. This should be your left. Well, regardless, if this is your left and this is your right, what you're going to hear is the shorter delay comes up on the left and not on the right. It's the longer delay. There are certain things that I will place along the stereo field where if I want it to be a little bit more subconscious, I'll pan it a little bit over to the right side. If I want it to be a little bit more obvious, I'll pan it over to the left side. I think it has to do with the way we read, and I think that, there's so much left to right in the world. Again, if you think about how we drive, we're kind of looking over on the left, because there's all this stuff going on. So for that reason and others, I have a tendency to pan something I want to be noticed more to the left. So in this case, the shorter delay, I want it on the left. So it really, when you hear it back there, it actually makes sense. First of all, I got lots of people here. Hang on, I need to check in for just a quick second here. I've got some people that I need to say hello to. So, all right. First of all, Andy, great to see you, my friend. And again, Steve, always a pleasure. And let's see here. Armando, good morning. Hey, great to see you as well. Nitin, my pleasure. There we go. Excellent. Thank you so much. And let's see. Okay, good. Left and right orientation. Thank you very much. Bill, again, always a pleasure. All right. Good. Let the fretboard. I love the fretboard. Aren't they cool? All right. Daniel, hello, good morning to you. And gosh darn it, Tonic, what's going on? Everybody loves this guitar. I love that. I will have to let my friends from Kramer, who were kind enough to send this out, let them know. I have fallen in love with this guitar. All right, Focus Fox is here. So the deal is that let me actually demonstrate this same sound without the longer the longer repeats. So I'm going to trim the repeats off such that you just hear one. And the reason that's strange is when we think about an ambient space that we're in, you go echo, echo, echo. You don't just hear one echo. If you're in a room, you may hear kind of that primary, slap back, but there will be these secondary reflections. And so having just one repeat, unless you're going to do something really short, if you're going for something longer, I would suggest, again, going for a longer delay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set these guys such that the number of, I should say, more repeats. And I'm going to set them such that the shorter the delay has more repeats. Because quite often what's happening, the delays in the background, even though you might not hear it in the same way that you will hear if I turn it off, the transient... And that's mouse dropping number 2. Oh, I like that. I've got mouse droppings going on. Gosh darn it. All right. So, gosh darn it. All right, so the idea is there's the transient of the attack, And generally the delay is hiding in the background there. And as that is happening there, come on. The mouse decided to have a life of its own. You're going to hear the transient attack of the guitar. Each one of the delays when it hits has a transient, but the idea is that it's quiet enough in theory most of the time in the background that you don't really notice when it pings the original note. The other thing that's super, super important is on this delay in particular, I have the ability to adjust the treble and the bass. So I've really made it such that the thing is not running full bandwidth. And I remember having a conversation with Joe Satriani decades ago, and he said, oh, I never run my delays full bandwidth. Because, for example, if I turn the treble all the way, and I got to pull way back, if I turn it up, hear how much it sounds like the transient. In fact, there it's a little too bright in terms of the actual transient itself, but I've got it pulled back. I'm going to play that same thing again with the treble all the way up. And when the transient of the ping of the delay hits, it's really weird. Now, I'm going to do something kind of extreme here. I'm going to pull the bass. So I basically, what they would call band passes. So there's basically no bass and only treble. So there might be a time where you might go, hey, that's really groovy. But generally speaking, it's that perfect blend where it's there, but it's not, right? And I'm going to get to a couple of questions. I see, Brett, your question here real quick. Let me pull up the track here real quick. No, I'm not ready to do that. Hang on. My mind has changed. I'm going to go here. Thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from... the next level of gain listen to the way the delay responds as I go from the cleanest setting to the next gainiest. So ideally you have enough treble that if you get brighter or duller, the delay will track with you, but again, not to the point where it's fighting with the transients. And again, in terms of the number of repeats, that's about 3 to 4-ish. All right, now as I go to the first kind of gain stage here, I'm going to, I should probably come down just a little tiny bit. I'm going to move from the number 2 pickup selection into the bridge for right now. And I'm going to back off the amount of delay because that's more than I actually need, because too much of a good thing is actually too much of a good thing. In a minute, I will pump that puppy back up, but in this particular instance, switch over to the neck pickup and you're going to hear how pretty now this is the perfect place for when and where I'm going to bring in a little bit of reverb. Because if you listen, the sound, I'm going to pull the delay out real quick. But you're going to hear, first of all, this tone is stark. And when I add the delay back in, it still feels stark. And that's exactly where I'm like, okay, this is time for just a little bit of reverb. So I'm going to turn the delay off so you can hear how much reverb I'm adding. I'm going to add a little bit less. A little bit more. And it's kind of like using salt, right? You season to taste. All right, nothing in. Adding the reverb. Actually, I'm going to add the. There's dry. Here's the delay. And adding that the reverb. And so what we're doing is we're kind of working with the balance of that. Now, sooner than later, you're going to get a fulcrum demo. But because I have not yet figured a way to hook Sonia's beautiful pedal here, this is basically a bi-axis expression pedal. But this is the exact instance where that type of a device would enable you to kind of go, okay, now I'm going to blend in the exact right amount of delay and reverb for the sound that I'm using. All right, now I'm going to go to the most gain setting, and I'm going to pull everything out real quick. And in a second, I'll check back in on the chat. So now it's not quite as I'm going to turn down just a little tiny bit. It's not quite as staccato. Got a little bit more give to it. So I wouldn't necessarily have a need for as much reverb. In the same way that over here, that I do. However, all of a sudden you're like, you're in that zone. So this is arguably one of my favorite places to be, where you've got this kind of longer delay thing going on. And I'm going to switch to the neck pickup now. And that's Pro Tools being a little... Turn all the sweet stuff off so you hear what it sounds like with nothing. Just a delay. adding the reverb in. And add that dreamy quality. All right, that's enough out of you. Thank you. All right, let me jump back into the Chatterooski. All right, first of all, in case you jumped in since I gave my initial salutation, I'm Doug. Welcome to Doppler'S Gear Garage. Hi. All right, so here's the deal. Let me just scroll back. Oh, my word. Look at all that chatting going on. Hold on a second. If I missed anybody, my apologies. Let's see. All right. Daniel, hello. I think I got you. Tonic, what's going on? Yes. What's going on? I play 6-string. Gosh darn it. I seem to be dropping stuff today. But you know what? That's going to be another texture we're going to go forward with fingers, so I can deal with that. Ron, always a pleasure. Adam, hello, hello, hello. Fernley, New Mexico. No, wait, sorry. Nevada. That's me having way too much fun, by the way. Nandini, hello, as always. Ping pong delay. I love ping pong delay. And again, strategically, when and where I have the ability to play in stereo, the idea is that the main guitar, when you're playing with... No, actually, let me explain. My guitar is actually panned hard left and hard right. However, when you hear the guitar without delay and reverb, you don't necessarily notice the subtle difference between left and right. It is, if you had headphones on or listen to earbuds, you'll hear it coming up on the left and right. And I believe part of how they've done that, I don't have the stereo chorus on yet, is that I think what they've done is they flipped the phase or done some sort of little phase thing. And we talked about this a little bit before, where, you know, when you see in Pro Tools or whatever DAW you use, when your recorded signal is there, if you zoom way in, the wave goes positive and negative, positive, negative. And if you flip those around and you pan things left and right, it gives you this really cool extra wide stereo thing. The problem is, if you sum it back into mono, one's going positive, the other going negative, they cancel each other out. That is to say, if you've only got $1 in the bank and you go out and spend $1, you got nothing. All right. So Griffin, hello, hello, hello. So stacking delays without them tripping over each other or cluttering the sound. So it's a great question. Generally, I don't stack delays. However, Mr. Satriani, and that, by the way, the goal with stacking delays generally is creating kind of a, I'm going to call it cheap, but it's not really cheap, but cheap reverb. That is to say, what you're hearing here are two delays in parallel. They're just kind of cruising along. But if you run one into the other, then the direct signal and the delay signal of the first delay goes into the second delay. And you're not only going to be then delaying the direct signal that's passing through, but you're also going to be delaying the echoes from that first delay. And so what ends up happening is you end up kind of getting this reverberatory type of thing where there's multiple secondary reflections. A little bit earlier, I had just the one delay, and it feels, for the most part, on a longer delay, really unnatural because that doesn't happen in nature. So you're like, where'd the rest of the delays go? You're holding out on me. So the neat thing is, let's just say I increase the number of repeats here because that's going to be the cheapest way. I don't believe I have the ability to run this delay in series. But hang on. Do I have enough resources to do this? I do. Oh. Hang on. All right, so now you're going to hear... let's see. I'm going to change... Oh, first of all, give me just one moment. I want to save DD short. Okay. Now I'm going to get rid of the long delay. So that's the sort of place, before I kill it, that a shorter delay is cool. So I do this thing that I call the guitar harmonica. And it's a... And it's got a ZZ Toppy vibe, and in combination with kind of all the cool stuff the guitar does. So when you listen to a harmonica player quite often, let's add a little bit of reverb to that just for pits and goals. So it's got that vibe there. All right, take the delay, the reverb off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a longer delay. And for right now, I'm going to just give us one pan in the center. Delay volume is there, and I should be wet only. Good, okay. So now you're hearing a shorter delay with some more repeats. I should say shorter compared to the other one. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the longer guy back in, running the shorter guy in the long one. All right, I've got a panning thing going on, so let me see why this is... okay, I got it. Hang on a second. I need to do this. I think that's going to solve that problem. There we go. There you go. See that? That right there is what happens when we're in number. That's a great question. And that little bit is exactly that delay in series sound. However, you start to notice it starts to get a little bit in the way. So generally... And that's got a whole little vibe. Now, the delay, if you listen again, is back in the... So let me just pan that guy off a little bit to my right. Now... So it's kind of there, but let me bring that track back in. Thank you for behaving, Pro Tools. The guitar, when you hear it kind of on its own, if you will, solo, you notice the delay much more, but because it's panned off a little bit to the right, to me, it's taking it from my conscious train of thought when it's on my left side over to my not so conscious train of thought. And again, anytime I've got a part that I really want to kind of, it's there, but it's not, I pan it off to the right. And something I want to notice, I just pan it off to the left. I can't necessarily explain when and where I started doing that. So that was, first of all, Brett, what a great question. And I've never done that. And that's kind of the whole reason I wanted to do today like that. So thank you for that. I got to tell you, on days when I come in here and like people, for whatever reasons, don't ask a lot of questions, I'm like, so thank you for that. Shane, great to see you, my friend. I got an S-Series Ibanez last year and a Lincoln Brewster Strat last month. Dude, rolling. It looks like I'm going to have to buy a new Kramer. I love it. I digress. Sorry. All right. That Brewster Strat is great. All right. Congratulations again, Shane. That is awesome, my friend. All right. Brett, hello. All right. Brett Van V, great to see you again, my friend. I do not have Eventide split EQ, but, the idea of being able to... All right. Let's go back in time a little bit and have a delay conversation. Because for those of you that aren't as old as I am, you do not know the evolution of delays. Going off camera for the first time today, but well worth it. Let's see, which one will I start with? Let's start with you. Hang on. Let's see if I can find the other one as well. It may not be here. Half a second. There we go. Good. Oh, awesome. Boy, lucky me. All right, I'm almost there. Hold on. I'm on my way back. I'm coming to you. Landing the plane. All right, here we go. Okay. They don't call it Doppler's Gear Garage for nothing. All right, so let's roll back the hands of time for a quick moment and say, now I actually have, they're not down here, a green tube Echoplex and, actually two of them, an EP1 and EP2, and this is an EP3. The EP4, which I don't own, unfortunately, has the addition of tone controls, which is where, for the first time, people kind of went, oh, I can attenuate the sound of this thing. So the thing about this particular guy, this Maestro Echoplex, not all of them are badged Maestro, is that it's got this tape right there that spins around, and you can adjust the amount of time between the record and the playback head to adjust the length of the delay. And so this it has a particular sound to it that brings in a couple of things that are really important in the world of delay. Number one, as Mr. Satriani said to me years ago, and as I quoted a little bit earlier in the broadcast, he doesn't believe in in years past, and this would have been like, Joe talking to little Dougie, don't run your delays in full bandwidth. And, so literally the first Echoplex I ever heard was Joe's EP1 sitting about this far from him in the teaching studio. And that was literally the first delay I ever played through. Kind of cool. And then somewhere shortly thereafter that, the DM2 showed up in the teaching studio where Joe taught and I studied. And so this was really kind of the first, it was the first little stomp delay that I ever played through. I don't know for a fact it was the first stomp box delay, but it's entirely possible in that little form factor it was. So, but the thing about those is they had a particular sound. They didn't have a super long delay time, but they had their own little vibe. And so Joe's setup at the time was a was a vintage Big Muff. And so you would sit there in the back of the teaching studio, and you know, he had this little tiny little amp. Forget the brand. It was some kind of off-brand, but you know. So the point being is, he just had this clean zone, and then he would turn on the Big Muff and the DM2, and it was an amazing sound. And this was kind of, you know, much of the time that I was studying with him was just after the Floyd Rose had come onto the market, as kind of crazy as that seems, and so. Very early on, he had, for those of you that are diehard Satriani guys, I think he's playing it. No. You may not actually have any photos that you would have seen of Joe playing the White Kramer. But basically, it had two humbucking pickups. Actually, I still have the pickups that he had in there. They were Schaller pickups in this White Kramer. And actually, it's this guitar, but in white. Hang on. Where are you? Come here, Kramer. There we go. It was literally this guitar, but well, not literally this guitar, but it was this guitar. So it was basically two humbuckers, a little three-way toggle, volume and tone, and so that was the guitar that Joe was using. Had the Floyd Rose on it, but his guitar was white, and it just was this amazing sound. Needless to say, because not only was the gear cool, but there was that guy, Joe Satriani, playing it, and it kind of made it insane. But the point being, that was my introduction to hearing delay and the conversations and the framing of my delay experience. In the early kind of Satriani things, and when he was playing in the band The Squares, he would use a chorus, a Boss CE1, and split that out into two echoplexes that would go into the two Marshalls that he was using there. So the kind of the idea of the stereo delay split thing is something that for me was infused very early on into my psychology about how I think about this. Because the thing is that for me, delay is as much as a psychology as it is a way of life. So as I begin to think about dialing in tones, I'm always thinking, well, how am I adding the right type and right amount of ambience in the mix of that? So the idea of the EQing of the delays is actually really important. So the thing about the Echoplex is that, first of all, they were kind of lo-fi. Everything about the signal was kind of lo-fi. But the thing is, they could potentially add some really coolness because of the preamp circuit that's in there. The other thing is that because of the delays didn't run at full bandwidth and the tape would get stretched, it would get this thing called warble. So it would kind of add this kind of modulation that was really cool. Okay, so this is a great question. So holy cow, you guys are helping me make a heck of a YouTube video. At least I'll watch it. Great question. So in most instances, when you're using a high amount of gain, you always run the delays afterwards. And again, this is strategically, gosh, this is great. If you run a delay into the front end of a really high gain amplifier, it's going to sound very strange. And that's the one thing I probably, no, hang on. Hold on. Let's see if I can do this. Give me a moment. We're going to do this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put, oh, no, okay, hang on. Guitar. Guitar and bass, there we go, okay. Oh, I can do this, all right. So let me answer your question in varying degrees, and I'm going to use the Chandler most likely. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling up an amp model, and I'm going to buy, let's see, which one am I going to go for real quick? Oh, I used to have that in there. Sorry, trying to do stuff in real time is not always a perfect science, but bear with me. I want to give you the best example that I can. There used to be an AC30 model in the Universal Audio world, but I'm not finding it. But I've got another option there. All right, I'm going to go with the Chandler. All right, now in theory, when I put this guy over here, let's see what happens. I'm going to probably, all right, there we go. All right, now the Chandler. Let's get this guy. So I've turned. I've been playing through this Rockman pedal. Right now, the Rockman pedal is off. I've got the Chandler GAV 19 on, and I'm doing something very strange. I've run it in. I've got it running in a stereo bus. Hear what's happening to the delays. I'm going to turn the delay off for a quick second, and what I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to make it work, because there are some really groovy things that you can do when you find that. So I am going for a slightly... So you can hear there's a little bit of hair on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run that before the delay. Let's bring you on. No, that's not the one I want. Okay. I have multiple instances of the plugins floating around here, and now I'm going to organize them left to right. So you can hear that it's distorting there. Let's flip this. Hold on. Let me just make sure I've got the right one doing where I want it. Sorry. This is what happens when you do it on the fly. Okay, good. Okay, now what's happening here is the sound of the amp without a delay going on. Here we go. All right, so there is a little bit of hair on it. I'm going to pull the treble back there, and so there's a little less. Add a little bit of reverb just to kind of make it groovy here. So again, what I'm doing is I'm running the amp into the delay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the order. I'm going to run the delay into the amp. And hear how much more distortion. I'm going to add even more gain on the amplifier. And you're really making the delays distort in a way that they're more distorted than the actual amplifier. Now, if I kind of balance that out a little bit, however, you can craft a really groovy sound. It wasn't necessarily the best example of it, but it still got us close enough. I'm going to get rid of the Chandler now. I'm going to turn back on this guy. There we go. And again, as you listen to the delays now, let me turn the reverb off. The delays have distortion, but they're not distorted. So they have, and actually I've pulled back a little bit of the top end when I trim that back a little bit. So let me bring a little bit of that back. But again, well, actually let me pull all the top end. The treble knob is all the way off. So you almost hear the whoo of the delay, the rush of the delay, if you will. Not enough high end. I've got it at like 25% now. Still not enough for my taste. Now I'm basically at noon. I'm going to go up to 3 o'clock, which is going to be more than I want. Now, there would be a place for that. Actually, I'm going to pull the mix up. However, it doesn't wrap the notes quite like when I pull it back. I bring the volume up. And there, the delay is kind of chasing, and with the track out, now you're like, oh, that's way too much. And by the way, I'm back in the neck, and I think at one point I was in the number 4, or then I also was in the number 3 or the number 2. And that just kind of cuts a little bit of the schwutz out. That is to say, again, number 2 versus number 2, and then that little sits nicely in when the way it plays. If I was just playing with the delay, if that was the only sound I had, I'd pull the delay back in. And So, and that's where an expression pedal like this, although I'm kind of in the box, so you can't, to the best of my knowledge, I've tried to figure out how I could use this. Where I'm really most excited about using this pedal, first of all, it's great for your pedal board, but it's a kind of a bi-axis expression pedal, but I really, really want to figure out how I can use it with my DAW so I can use it as an effects mouse. That's just, for me, is like, would be the greatest thing I could possibly do. Such that I basically, since I've already dropped it on the floor twice today, I hate using a mouse, but there's no getting around it. So in any case, all right, let me jump back into the chat here because I'm sure I've missed at least one thing. Okay, good. Okay, so to answer that question, and what a great question. So generally speaking, the way I'm using it inside the DAW here is the same way I would use it in the amp. Any time-based effects that are long effects like a delay and or a reverb, I'll put them in the effects loop and or in this case after the distortion, because you don't generally want to distort a delay. However, the exception that I tried to imitate, didn't do the best job, but it was close enough, is running effects into the front end of an AC30 a la the Edge. And so the idea is the amp is going to be giving up the ghost a little bit because you're pushing it when it's loud, where the delays are actually purposely going to distort a little bit, and that's part of the sound. And it can be a really groovy sound. Sonia, good morning. Hello. Jose, good morning to you, my friend. Good. Okay, so Chris, that is the rock, man. It's a little groovy little pedal here. I will be probably doing a video on it probably this week. The good news is, no, the great news is I keep shying away from saying what I really feel, which is it feels like it's the best pedal I've ever played. I cannot believe that, like, literally. Hold on, let me turn the delay and the reverb off. Sorry, delay and reverb, I apologize, but hang on. Only Joe Satriani would start his first song of his first album with pitch axis because he's a genius, and that's why he's Joe Satriani. Hang on, I got a couple more people saying hello. Hang on, let me. Oh, come on, come back here. This is the danger of having a few applications of it. David Blood, great to see you. Hello. Hey. What a pleasure, my man. Hey. Awesome. Pablo Coronado, how you doing, my man? The neck pickup doesn't it? All right, so let's now, with a completely clean tone, let's try the shorter delay. Right, I need to do this. So I had a shorter delay set up. There was this guy. There we go. Set up. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for, let's see. Where are you? All right, let me bring this other one up here. Hang on. And let's bring this guy up. All right, Oh, all right, this is about to get kind of groovy. All right, what I've got is So on the first Satriani, he did this really cool little piece, and it was using two shorter delays. I need to bring the volume of delay right. Delay volume. Oh, okay. Let's bring that. Oh, I see what I've got going on here. They're a little offset with each other. And the fact that they're not perfect. Now, on its own, if you played like for single note stuff, it doesn't sound great. For squells, or for longer chords. Yeah. Okay, sorry, I digress. Gosh, delays are cool. So, getting back to the point of today, and again, part of why I wanted to go, let's see what happens if we just take the completely creative approach. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I hope I find something cool. So again, that's the stereo delay where the two guys are set. And the trick is, there my right delay is set to more repeats, and now my left delay is going to be way too hot in terms of number of repeats. So generally, I like to kind of have them, if you leave them too long, I'm going to purposely leave them a little long on the number of repeats. It just starts to get sloppy in the background. So if I pull them back, and it's called decay in this app, I'm using the Cooper time cube, by the way. Especially as a chord like that sits with it. It's not necessarily, again, you know, if I'm soloing, not my vibe at all, but does that feel good? All right, let me jump back into the chat here. Okay, hang on a second. There, we get you out of the way there. All right, first of all, Steve, what's going on? It was so nice to see you at the Dream Theater show, my friend. Your beard was a little longer at the show, though. What an amazing concert, right? Holy cow. What did you think? All right, Chris, how does the Joshua pedal compare to other delays? It's a great question. So the Joshua was kind of, they sent that to me right when it was first released, and that kind of became my take everywhere delay pedal because it's a stereo delay. You can set it kind of. By the way, I haven't mentioned one really important thing on stereo delays. Generally speaking, even if it's not perfectly beat synced to the tempo of whatever song it is, I generally prefer to put the left delay as a dotted eighth and the right delay as a quarter note, even if the tempo is not the same that it was set to for. And there are many delays these days where they have that subdivision, including the Joshua delay, where you can set up such that one's dotted eighth, one's quarter note. And then in turn, you just have a tap tempo function where you tap in the tempo of the song. I had this conversation with John Cuniberti. For those who aren't in the know, John produced and engineered a bunch of the Satriani stuff. And I have the privilege of working with him both on the instrumental album that I am taking my time purposely on finishing, as well as the vocal album, same thing. And one of the conversations we've had is that he doesn't like to actually beat sync delays in mixes, because if the drummer moves a little bit with the snare and the time, you'll get a flam between the delay and the drums. And I thought, that's kind of clever. I guess that's why he's John Cuniberti. So it's interesting. So generally, if you're looking for a, kind of, even if it's a single delay time, the 320 to 360 millisecond spot is just a sweet spot to go in. And 360 was kind of my magic number for years and years and years when I just wanted kind of, a single spot to live at. So the Joshua was a great little delay. There was one thing that I wanted to get it to do, which I need to double check, but there was one thing about the stereo mode that it didn't let me do. And I think it was that you could absolutely get 100% of the dotted eighths on one side and 100% of the quarter note on the other. Now, let me exemplify what I'm talking about. So the deal is, let me go to long delay guy here. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. So they're hard pan. Now I'm just going to bring them in a little bit. Now, they actually were hard panned, but what it was is that you would get a little bit of the one delay. You get a little bit of each of the delays on either side. So even though it was kind of in the stereo-ness of it, full left and right, you had a little bleed from one side to the other. As I recall, there was one thing that I couldn't get it to. I will go back in and check on that because I could be wrong. So let me just preface like that. Now, again, I'm going to bring the delays in and hug them a little bit closer to the center. Now, what I've done here is the Rockman is... stack all the delays at once now. Okay, give me just a moment. Now, this is an interesting thing. So quite often... I can do this. Hang on. I can mute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute. I'm coming in stereo, but I can mute one of these inputs, and I can bring the other to dead center. There we go. But I'm not going to do that one. I want to do this one. I want you. I think that's going to be the better sounding of the two. Now you're going to hear how if I'm running most people, if they're playing one lead guitar, are going to push the right button. I'm going to bring the bridge. And get rid of the chorus. All right, so there the guitar is dead center. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack the delays. Make sure I've got the right delay here. There you go. I'm going to pan them hard left and hard right. And this is generally... Bring in the track and you can hear that. All right, so that's the one guitar. Oh, shush. Guitar's in the center. But the delays are on the left and the right. My right delay is a little hot. Oh, yeah, of course. Moron. There we go. Now I'm gonna kind of do the opposite thing. I'm gonna bring the delays in tight on the center, and I'm gonna bring both the left and the right of the guitars back in, and the guitar is gonna be pan left and right, and it's gonna be almost the exact opposite. I need more delay there. Okay, let me pan them not quite so tight, the delays, so they're kind of closer to the center. Now, in the track, normally I wouldn't bring them quite so tight, but you might find it's going to do something interesting. So they're out of each other's way. Now I'm going to actually pan everything hard left and hard right. And so the delays and the guitar are going to sit together. However, now what you get, that's kind of my preference, in that the guitars are stereo, so they're hard left and right, or the guitar. But you're getting everything sitting kind of together, so the direct signal and the delay signal are kind of dancing together, if you will. Track. And the way it's kind of doing this little tickling thing on the outside, just like doing. That sounds good. All right. You. Stack all the delays at once now. So, Steve, and I don't know if you came in before, after, or during. So, generally speaking, when I'm playing live, I have a tendency to leave an always on delay. But so my live rig, there you go. You can see the bottom there, right? As I kick my Echoplex, yeah. So this guy that I'm not going to kick is my XFX3. So generally, this is some take on the JP2C's over there somewhere. So my live rig, ironically, so that you're kind of seeing all the different incarnations of my live rigs. It's either a Mark 7 or the JP2C that's kind of hidden over there, or my fly rig is the Mark 525. And right there, Ski, is the Mesa Boogie, the Seymour Duncan Power Stage 700 power amp. As the name implies, it's 700 watts because I like loud. So the deal is, for that setup with the fractal, I'll dial in a little bit of reverb and a stereo delay, dotted eighth on one side and a quarter note on the other. That's just always on, kind of there living. And pretty much I'll keep it low enough such that it's in the background, but loud enough such that it's still doing a little bit of something of the... And that's probably more than I would use in the framework of how I'm using it. I don't have a tendency to, in this moment, do anything other than just kind of leave it always on. And the JP2C is a MIDI amp. I'm not using a MIDI switcher. Honestly, one of the challenges that I've got is that I'm in the process of okay. So to your point, great question. Chicken and egg. In this particular moment of my career, I'm working on both an instrumental album and a vocal album. And in particular for the instrumental album, one of my big takeaways is I need to do a little bit more fine-tuning. Again, I had the shorter delay. Hold on, let me get this guy. Save, and that's going to be DDJS, because it's really kind of like that Satch thing. So if I go back to that should be no. Oh, great, I hosed my preset. Oh, well. Oh, wait, hold on. Wait. Hold on. There we go. Okay, there we go. Presets. DD short. There we go. This guy. Less delay. Hang on a second. Just one sec. There we go. A little bit more. So it's a really short little... And that will get a little bit of reverb as well. So that particular sound is a thing that needs to be present on the album, and I was very clear that it's got to have some sort of short little... I'm going to turn that off. Put it back on. So it's a thing, right? Such that as you're the challenge is, I've watched a bunch of guitar players as they're going from song to song. They're tethered to the pedal board, unless you're kind of running some sort of tracks that you're running. Like Herman Lee's a guy that I've gotten to know over the years. When Dragon Force was playing live, everything was set to a MIDI clock, and so all his patches would change for him, which is really convenient. But that's not what I do. So the idea of crafting tones and then kind of going, okay, well, those are very song-specific tones, then the always-on delay no longer becomes the always-on delay because you're crafting things specifically in and out. And that's one of those needs where, well, what am I doing? What am I trying to do? But generally speaking, what I've done up until this point is I do have an always-on delay because, it just kind of allows me to just kind of do what I need to do to get the job done. It's a great question. So generally speaking, dotted eighth on the left, quarter note on the right. And it's just kind of my go-to. It's a great question. Sorry, Brett, sorry for not being more clear. You want to run the shorter delay into the longer delay. And that just gives you, and what the reason being is it gives you the shorter delay and its repeats, for lack of another way of saying it, kind of crystallizing out, and those are being repeated. So it's the best way I can describe it is when you clap your hands in a room, you'll hear the reflections that are closest to you, the ones you'll hear first. Then those will bounce off of other surfaces in the room, and they create this longer wash. So that idea of the short delay going into the longer delay is synonymous, if you will, with what you experience naturally in real time. So yes, generally that's my preference. If I'm going to do that. Brian Felix, good morning, my friend. Great to see you. Hello, hello, hello. Sonia, what's going on? Doug is in the zone, and I'm somewhere. Okay. Been a while since I've been. I've seen one of those. Okay. That would have been the Echoplex. Got it. Paul, what's going on? Since we're going back in time, has the Chandler digital delay seen its last days? What a great question. Paul, I'm very fond of you, and just in case I haven't ever expressed my fondness for you, let me do it now. The Chandler Stereo Digital Echo is hanging out in here. So one of the things that's getting ready to happen in Doug World is that, based on a number of Pablo, a bunch of feedback in here, and just everywhere, and having a strategic plan. I'm crafting a strategic plan. What I love about these sessions is, I have learned so much about the YouTube video on using a delay, thanks to you and your questions today. I'm because I've got thoughts, but it's another thing to kind of get real-time feedback and also kind of see what people kind of go, oh, that thing, right? In particular, there were kind of well, that's not what we're looking for. The idea of this sound, which I already kind of know, is one of my kind of oh, this thing, right? I'm probably too hot, which means I'm distorting the mic a little bit. My apologies. It could have sounded better, but not distorting, but if I turn my mic off, but there's all sorts of things that happen. I'm not monitoring super loud, but I'm monitoring loud enough, and I have an open mic, but, well, such is life. All right, so here's the deal. Hold on, let me get back to chat. There we go. The sense of using delays and having feedback from people is really valuable. So there's at crafting this whole social media plan is kind of what I'm doing. If you've noticed, with the exception of the Rockman photo I posted yesterday, I've been really quiet on socials because as I get back into it, you're going to see a much more strategic plan. For example, it's highly probable with a 90 percentile that there will be Technique Tuesday. And following Technique Tuesday will be Theory Geek Thursday. And chances are when I talk about on Technique Tuesday, I'm going to go through in some of the background theory on Theory Geek Thursday. And chances are that's going to spill over to Doppler's Gear Garage for the teaching segment for Saturday, such that all these things begin to make a little bit more sense strategically. And I can map out kind of a bunch of things, including potentially batch shooting some stuff, such that, I'll sit down on the, fill in the blank first whatever of the month, and I'm okay, these are the things I'm going to shoot for that, and I'm going to have them in the can, and that way my schedule doesn't get sideswiped by life, and I can be really intentional about it. As it relates to YouTube, there are a number of specific devices. I'm answering your question, Paul. The Chandler Stereo Digital Echo is in a rack over there. Maybe it's the only one space rack I've ever seen available for purchase, and I bought it. And it was at the store where I studied with Joe. So somebody sliced off a piece of the tape where Joe wrote for Doug D. So it's kind of but it's got Joe's handwriting on it. And in fact, I can see it. And that, I'm pretty sure, is either where my Matrix Power Amp is or my Chandler Stereo Digital Echo, which was one of the devices that Satriani used. And it was a very, very popular unit back in the day. And it sounded great. And it was basically intended to be a stereo digital echo. It's the Echoplex in a rack unit, made by Chandler, also known as Paul C., who made a bunch of, they were kind of one of the early kind of aftermarket guitars and bodies. There's a photo of Joe Satriani with kind of the Rubina painted guitar with kind of like, this is the beak headstock because it looks like a bird's beak. But there's also the other Kramer I had that I pulled out for a minute. That's got the hockey stick, kind of looks like a hockey stick. So there's a photo of Joe wearing this hairy vest. It's in the press pack for Not of This Earth. And so it's very funny because Joe's actually a quirky and very funny guy. And so there he is with the guitar. So you might have seen this particular guitar, though. It's painted by Rubina. It's got all these cool kind of rainbow-esque colors, and it's got, again, the hockey stick headstock. So that was a Paul C's neck, as I recall. So the idea is the SDE 3000 that's sitting down there, that the Echoplexes, the DM2, the Big Muff, and while we're at it, this is the Texas Squareface. There was a guy named Cesar Diaz, who, for those of you know who he was, and for those of you who don't, you're about to learn. He was Stevie Ray's tech, and he was a genius, a little bit of a wild guy, but just really was integral to Stevie Ray's tone and everything. Like, they did really cool stuff. A little bit of a left turn, but here we go. I went and visited them. I went and visited Analog Man, and then I went and visited them after that, and I spent the better part of an afternoon and a day. Cesar had passed at this point, but I got a chance to spend some time. They gave me those 3 pedals. Well, there are 2 others. There's the Texas Squareface, the Armadillo, or whatever it is. There's a tremolo, a fuzz face, and the other, is the other one a tube screamer? What was it? But I have all 3 of those pedals, so I'm going to end up doing YouTube videos on all of these things. And I'm just kind of waiting till a couple of other things are lined up that I can't talk about, just in kind of my social media footprint as it relates to brands. But the idea is kind of having a very clear strategy. So long answer short, or short answer long. The Chandler Stereo Digital Echo is definitely one of the pieces that's going to get its own little kind of like, and by the way, feedback welcome. I'm thinking about calling them, no, I knew exactly what you meant. Yeah, that's good. Appreciated. But the idea is, input welcome. I'm thinking about potentially calling it OG Gear. The reason being, the initial idea was to call it Doppler's Vintage Vault, which is kind of groovy, but there's this fine line between OG Gear, like this, hey, and yes, there is going to be a compare the new Rockman and the old Rockman video, because there kind of has to be, and Vintage Vault. At what point is it OG, Original Gangster, and at what point is it actually really vintage, and at which point am I blurring the lines in a not effective way? So who likes OG Gear and who likes Vintage Vault? Give me that. There's an Echoplex on Reverb that supposedly Randy Rhoads owned. Someone is asking $99,000. Yeah, so let me offer a word of caution about any of the celebrity-owned stuff. Unless you have so much money that you can afford to get ripped off, stay away from it. Transients is so much better than Overdrive. And the effects, My man, how are you? Good to see you. All right, Terry, what's going on? Hey, good to see you. Good, 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 excellent. I cannot wait to see you at the Petrucci camp. Awesome, 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 awesome. Tom Atkins, hello, hello, hello. Uh, so the funny thing about the trackpad, is that I've been practicing like a lunatic. For this 15-minute fundamentals super course that I'm working on. And I'm having so much fun. However, the one thing that I'm very, very, very conscious of is this joint. So generally speaking, it's very, very healthy. But because of what it does, and the moment I start using a trackpad, I now am totally setting myself. First of all, it's a brilliant suggestion, and I'm not great with the left hand. But the trackpad, that particular motion totally irritates this joint. It's a great suggestion, but in terms of RSI, because of the amount I'm playing guitar, and I'm going to continue playing, I'm hyper conscious of this thumb does not need an additional thing to kind of push it over the edge. It's a great suggestion. Neil, hello, my friend. I've had to different ways stacking delays. Hold on, stop mouse over. There we go for spacious leads and in the worship. Awesome, awesome in a setting. When I stack delays, I ran the shorter delay into longer, usually 600 milliseconds and 400 milliseconds, and then keep those shorter one in the mix and less repeats. The other one, so you might try. First of all, 6 and 4. So the thing is that those what you've got is you have a proportion of 4 to 6, which again is still a timely proportion. You might also try for pistons and giggles doing a 350 and 300 and 450 and 450 and 600. Those are also subdivisional ratios that you might try. Great things for me to make mental notes in. Okay, when you're recording, do you use 2 channels for stereo delays, and how do you pan them in your DAW? Okay, so that is another great question. Thank you for that. So technically everything you've seen me do today is what I do in the DAW. So here's to answer that with a little bit of a rabbit trail because it deserves it. The chicken and the egg thing. So again, is this still up here? No, it's on the long delay. What is that? Is that a Europe song or something? It's something. In any case, when you record and create something, you create something that you're like, oh, that is the sound of that song, and it happens with plugins, then you got to figure out how to get that out into your DAW. So this is, again, one of the challenges that I've got because I'm going to break it down. Behind me, besides a nice cable back there, you're going to see that there's a trio right there. There's a gold pedal, there's a black pedal, and a white pedal. So those are a trio of UA's, Universal Audio UAFX pedals. They are high draw in terms of how much current that they want to pull off the board or in milliamps. But they sound great, and the important thing about those for me is they have the exact algorithms of what I use in the studio that I can put into the effects loops of my amps there. That is a very important piece if you're looking for that continuity. The unfortunate thing is that those devices are not MIDI. And you can kind of put 2 presets in them because they have dual engines. But the challenge is then you're stepping on one of those in the midst of having to step on something else that needs to happen. So unfortunately, the things that I really need them to do may force me to actually have maybe multiple instances of those, or figure out how I'm going to craft those sounds inside the fractal universe. And so in particular, the Cooper Time Cube is kind of my go-to delay because you have the ability to do all these great things with it. When I'm using it, as you see me using it today, I'm using it in Universal Audio's application called Console, which is basically my gateway to pretty much anything I record. And inside there, in a stereo bus, I'm running the reverb and the delays in stereo. So that is to say, my signal comes in on a channel strip. That channel strip has an aux send that goes off to an aux bus, which is where the delays live on one aux bus, and the reverb's on another. And then I've got I have both send levels on each one of the channel strips where the guitar is running into because I'm coming in stereo. and then in turn there's a fader for the level of the delay. So what you saw me doing is I brought delay up and down. I'm moving the fader of aux 1, and when I was adjusting the amount of reverb, aux 2. Both of those are stereo. Generally speaking, those are hard panned left and right because, again, I like to be able to put them since they're living in that shared space. I'm going to bring the delays in so they're closer to center. Just a little bit, but not quite so extreme. Let's try that. So it may not be totally, but you'll hear them hugging the center a little bit more. So actually, I'm going to bring them out just a little tiny bit. But you know what? I may have just found something thanks to your question. So here they are, hard left and hard right. And they kind of blend together. Now I'm going to bring them in just a little tiny bit. And they're going to get each other out of each other's way a little bit more. All right, so we're going to talk about something slightly esoteric. I love the fact that I've pulled the delays out of the way of the guitars. I could flip that and bring the guitars in. Well, hang on. Let's do that. I'm going to basically reverse exactly what I just did there. So here we go. Kind of like that. All right, so let me explain. So if you've got kind of hard left and hard right center, I brought the guitars kind of, if you will, kind of go from here to here. I got the guitars to basically about 3 o'clock. The delays were hard left and right. Gosh, that looks stupid. I've got a monitor where I can see myself. I'm like, what are you doing? But the guitars on their own are far enough out that they're noticeably hard panned, but we've got the delays being on the outside of that. That you get the separation because they're living in a slightly different space. They're in the same neighborhood, but they're not the same exact address in kind of the stereo's field. That's really nice. When I do this delay video, thanks to you, I'm going to demonstrate that because that is really cool. And I may, there will be places where I will use that, and that is really cool. The reason you want your direct signal hard left and hard right, it's out of the way of whatever else may be happening that's in mono in the center. So let's say, for example, you've got this drum kit like this. Generally, you're hearing, and the drums are a stereo image, but you're generally hearing the snare drum in the center. I missed that one. All right. So what's neat, though, is I'm purposely going, hey, there's information, but especially when you work with a singer, you're like, get out of the way of the vocals. So there will be times I'll play like a little line or something. If it's a little kind of call and response thing, I'll pan it, like I mentioned before, I'll pan a little bit to the right, just so it's not quite as, when you think about something that's in the center, it's got your attention, right? That is to say, ooh, I like that. I got to remember this. If you're watching TV, whatever's in the center of the screen is kind of the main focal point. If somebody's kind of over in the background on the side, they're obviously, unless it's a conversation, they're not as important as that thing that's front and center. Unless you have, kind of two talking heads that they're like, blah, 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 having this conversation, right? So the point being, whatever's kind of in the background. Whatever's in the center is really kind of what's grabbing your attention. Now, in this particular case, because of the melody guitar, quote unquote, the lead guitar, whatever you want to call it, is kind of happening. It's kind of in stereo, but it's really more like dual mono, where the sound is just different enough that it's coming up left and right. But it's a lot more alike than it's dissimilar. I'd say it's closer to dual mono than if I do this. That's turning on the chorus. They're markedly different, right? So in that instance, again, if there's a vocal, I'm like, get that stuff out of the way. By the way, Mike Rand, I'm really getting used to the guitar is just in a little bit, and the delay's hard left and hard right. So hard left and hard right, to answer your question. There you go. In workshop, I use a quarter note and an eighth note delays tied to the tempo, and they would change equal when changing it. That's that subdivision. First of all, when I'm playing on Sunday morning. So interestingly enough, so my go-to Sunday morning rig is a Helix. I have one patch. I bring in. It's actually a Warship Tutorials patch. It's got a bunch of different stomps that I can step on that add varying degrees of gain and a little extra bite here and there. But generally speaking, it's one. It's not even multiple scenes. It's one scene in one preset that I just use like a virtual pedal board. And the delay, which is always on, is a dotted eighth and quarter note, and I never tap tempo it. It's just this kind of ambient. The great thing about quarter note and eighth note, dotted eighth and quarter note, is they just live together really well, even if you're not beat synced. It's just kind of the magic algorithm. So way to go. Yes, yes, and yes. Stephen Greenleaf, hello. Let's see if I can. Stephen Greenleaf, the introductor and inspirator, and not a conspirator, but an inspirator of much of the music that dramatically shaped my life. Great to see you, my good friend. Hola, bienvenidos. Albert with a question. There we go. Come on, finally. Question: if you have a stereo rig set up but have to go mono for a gig, what adjustments do you make to the delay configuration? It's a brilliant question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate. Oh, gosh, you guys are making a YouTube video for me. Thank you. We're going to hear what happens when we take all the beautiful groovy goodness that we've done here. And we take the delays there and we bring them straight into the center. Generally, here we go. All right, let me go to one guitar because it's going to be a little strange. Well, hang on. Let's see what happens when I. Oh, no. Okay, hold on. There we go. Actually sounds way better in mono than I thought it would. The beauty about that is I can then take that bit of business and I can do this. Oh, I've got the reverb still in stereo. Let me turn the reverb off. So because of the phase thing that they use to get the left and right separation when I turn the chorus off, you get that little, they call that comb filtering. Not a good thing. However, there's an internal mono selector switch that's on the inside. You take off the back cover there and turns this thing into mono. But because I was spending all this time this week hanging out with this guy playing in stereo, basically losing my mind, because the short version is, and it's never a short version, but all right, hold on, let me finish answering your question. That sound actually went down to mono really well, and my Helix, I serve at a relatively small church, and so there aren't two channels on the board, so they sum my guitar to mono, which honestly is a disservice to everybody, because it now means my guitar is right smack in the center of the vocals instead of on the hard left and the hard right, which is really where it should be. And because of idiomatically, worship guitar is pretty much always stereo. It gets a little bit dicey when there's two guitar players, but the idea is that it really should be hard left and hard right. But we don't have enough channels to make that happen. As an end result, it actually compromises the sound in a not great way. It's always a given, love the church, love the people. You make do with what you've got to make do with. The bummer is, though, I'm basically fighting with the lead vocals. So a minute ago, I talked about the guitar being in the center. So all that. So I am aware of what happens when it gets summed to mono is the word, right? You're taking the two stereo left and right, and you're summing them to mono. So the obvious answer, and boy, you guys are making a great YouTube video for me, so thank you for that. You try it. You do exactly what we did there, right? And you see, and so let's say, I was using this box like that, and I kind of go. As I pan those guitars, or even if I create a little bit of this. Actually, I'm going to show you something about phase that's going to be really cool. Here they are panned together, and there's some sort of little phase cancellation thing that's happening. Make sure I'm on the right channels. This is really cool. This is going to be kind of groovy. So you're going to hear. Let me turn off all the stuff. Doesn't sound bad, but it sounds a little thin. Now listen to what happens when I start to move the pan of. Here's this guy all the way over the way. It didn't just get louder, they stopped canceling each other out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to gently. That's not what I wanted to do there. Come on, there we go. I'm going to have them again pan hard left. I'm going to gently pan the right one. Now it's at 9 o'clock. I'll go back to this, Steve. Back all the way to the left. Back, the right guitar is at 9 o'clock. Now I'm going to put it in noon. 3 o'clock. 12 o'clock. Or sorry, all the way over at like 4. It's not that you got the stereo spread. What happens is they stop canceling each other out. So if you're using 2 different amps, okay, where this matters for you and me. Let's say we're using 2 amps mic'd up with SM57s. There is phase cancellation in terms of the waves being out of positive and negative phase coherency. Then there's time. That is exactly what was happening there. If one of the old hacks in years past was you would take one track and add the delay like 2 to 3 to 5 to 7 milliseconds. There's a magic number, sometimes 12. What happens is when you sum that into mono, you will get time-based cancellation. And actually, I think what's happened is I actually think they've offset one. I'll have to check with the Dunlop guys, but when it's in stereo without the stereo chorus on, I think they've added a little tiny bit of I don't think they flipped the phase because otherwise it would go away completely. I think they've added a little bit of delay, and when they're all panned in the same direction, you get time-based phase cancellation. That's, I think, is what's happening there. So that same thing happens when you got 2 mics on 2 different amps, or on 2 different amps or 2 different speakers, because the 2 speakers will sound different. And when they are not the same distance from the sound source, you'll get that same thing begin to happen if you pan them to the same direction. All of a sudden, you're like, "Where'd my signal go?" Because they're not time aligned, and so I'll have to check that with that. Again, another great question. So the deal is, let's just say you're using some sort of a JP2C. Actually, let's say you're using a Mark 7 and you're using cab clone IR coming out of the back of that. And then you're also, let's say we're using, let's say you've got 2 JP2Cs. Now, let's say you got 2 Mark 7s, and you're using, you're running one as the master and the other as the slave. It's this beautiful stereo thing. One lives on one side, one lives on the other, a la John Petrucci. Basically, you come out of the send of the 1 amp, you get your stereo split. Now it's kind of left and right between the 2, running back into the returns of both amps. And now that's one of the ways that you can do that. There's some other ways to go. But now you're and again, let's just say we're going to do that with 2 Mark 7s. So you've got cab clone IR, you've got your left delay coming out of the 1 amp, your right delay coming out of the other amp. And then if you use cab clone IR, they're going to be fine phase wise. But let's say you're running into 2 cabinets and you mic those 2 cabinets up. If those 2 mics aren't in the exact same distance position from the cabinets, you're going to get time-based phase cancellation. You'll be able to hear that when you summon them to mono, and it will not be a happy sound. But if, for example, you are using 2 instances of cab clone IR and you sum that to mono, you're going to be fine. That is to say, you're using the same IR. So there is the possibility that you could load a Boogie IR and a third-party IR, and those will not be in phase with one another. So just be conscious of some of that stuff. It's a little bit outside the scope of the delay conversation, but it's still an important thing, because if you're talking about, hey, I've got a stereo rig, stereo delays are part of my rig, but when I have to sum it to mono, all of a sudden I'm like, it's not just the delays that can be a problem. So it's a really great question. So again, the thing to do is do a home test, record it into 2 channels, ideally using some sort of direct solution that's one-to-one the same, and then sum it to mono. That is to say, you can this console has this function that I almost always will use to test a mix when I'm on my game. This is summing it to mono. So my guess is that there is a they purposely, to get this, that's how they're making it sound nice and stereo like that. So when you sum it to mono, it's a liability. So great question. Hello, Eric. What's going on, my friend? All right, Nandini with a question. Great. How do you describe the bare essentials of recording setup for a beginner? Excellent. Okay, so another video that's coming is, so there are two interfaces here from Focusrite. I sent an email yesterday to my friends at Universal Audio asking them to send basically the new version. It's an Apollo Twin X, which basically is kind of the latest version of that. And the idea is I'm going to be kind of creating a range of YouTube videos that's recording for guitarists. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the idea of great starter gear that leaves plenty of room to grow into, but also means at the beginning it's not so crazy steep that you're like, I don't know what to do. So that means you need an interface, which is what takes your direct signal from your guitar. If you're going to use some sort of modeler inside there, like, for example, the good folks at Neural DSP have, for example, Archetype Petrucci. So it's a plugin. They work great. Or if you're going to use a modeler, you plug your modeler into your interface. Or you're going to use an amp and a mic. You run that into your interface. That basically takes all that stuff and is the interface that sends that into your computer. That's how your computer and everything that's outside your computer talk. Let's call it a modem for sound. So in turn, once you're inside there, you need some sort of recording application to manage all the stuff that's going on, to be able to record the stuff going in and play back the stuff coming out. And believe it or not, then you need some speakers so you can hear all of that. And that's it. There's more stuff, but that's really the main part of it, is like, I just need to be able to have some place to record it. And once I'm done recording it, I need to be able to play it back and then maybe add some other stuff that I layer on the top of that. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I do over and over and over again. The idea is then, double tracking guitars, what's neat about that. And invariably there's going to be a video, and invariably I think I'm going to do a Saturday morning on my approach for double tracks, because I'm very clearly, you guys are giving me such great feedback that it's absolutely to everybody's benefit, hopefully, for me to kind of do that. And the idea is, when and where do you double track and why? And what are the benefits? So let's say, I had this guitar sound here. That wasn't what I wanted. I had this guy. Oh, no, I like that. Love is like oxygen. All right, pan, record that. And then I go, all right, let me record another one. And then I play them both together, and I end up with, and I'm kind of doing this fake version, but you end up with this. And instead of just having the one guitar, when you get used to hearing two, stop that. Then you really kind of go, oh, this is really cool. You just go, oh, it's that. It adds depth of field, allows you to take a wider thing in the mix. Now, let's just say I just want to have this guy over here. Again, my point being is like, I want this thing. Kind of it's over there, and let me pan it a little bit further over. Or maybe at the beginning of the song, I want it all the way over. So we got right. So let's see if I can. I'm not going to be able to do it in real time, but it's. You will have heard this, right? Da 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 da. So that's a great example of how they use that one guitar on its own. You're gonna, then the other one comes in. You're like, oh, Neil started with one guitar and then double tracked, and you're like, oh, this is really cool. Chances are, by the way, that happened as a studio accident. That is Neil was just sitting there like, oh, it's got to start with double track. But what happened is they were bringing up the faders. They kind of accidentally hit the second one later, and all of a sudden they were like, that's really cool. Because sometimes things happen by accident in the studio. You're like, it becomes the thing. So hang on a second. So give me a second here. So Nandini, let me know how I did in terms of that just kind of the essentials. So your rhythm tones basically have a slapback delay and a reverb on that at all times. So Eric, sorry, to be clear. Oh my word! I've got a lesson that's got to start in soon. We've been having way too much fun. This is great. So to answer your question, most of the time, even if I'm recording, this is the great thing about this UA setup. I can record with those delays or reverbs or whatever I want on the way in, without actually committing them to quote unquote digital tape. And then what's really cool about the UAFX is I can literally take that exact preset of the sound that I'm using in console, which is like a virtual mixing console. I can copy that and then load that into an instantiation, an instance of the same plugin running inside Pro Tools. And I can, like you saw me do a little bit earlier, I can save it to the version of the plugin that's running on console. And I can in turn save it to the version that's running inside my DAW. That if let's say I make some changes on the one that I'm running inside the DAW where I'm doing it to fit the track better, when I pull that Pro Tools session up, because I use Pro Tools, it will save the any changes that I make to that particular instance of the plugin inside that recording. Now, if I bring up that same preset in a different song, it's going to revert to the unsaved version of those changes. So it allows you to kind of sculpt away in real time. It's a fabulous workflow, and it's very powerful. So generally, I don't commit any delays and reverbs to tape as I'm recording. But I will track with them in console, which is exactly why they call it console. This is what you would do in a regular studio. Good morning, Brad. Great to see you. I hope you're doing great. I like them all, vintage and OG and new too. Look at you. Vintage, great. Thank you very much. Santana Europa, you got it. Shane, what's going on, my man? What gear should be bring to a guitar camp? Great question. Are you talking about the Petrucci guitar camp? Or are you just talking about in general? The Dream Theater camp people generally are like, just bring the smallest amount of gear possible. I will say that this Rockman pedal and the Fractal Audio VP4, because invariably so Chris asked me in Chris's question, hang on a second. Give my boy Chris some love. Where the heck is that? There we go. Come on. That makes me smile every time I see it. It's not just because he's wearing the shirt and he's holding my guitar, but it's because I love Chris so much. But I will say it's always nice to see the shirt and the guitar as well. So this is the Fractal Audio VP4. It doesn't have any amp modeling or anything in it, but it's got all sorts of great delays, reverbs, and other effects. These two together, Money, 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 money. So what's great about this is that it's probably a little bit more than they would want you to show up at the camp with, but you could stick it in the cubby of your gig bag, right? Obviously, you don't want to fly with this in the cubby of the gig bag because it might not look like this afterwards. But the idea is I could easily just get some really insane tones with this, or even this and the Joshua delay would get me there. But the idea is it's really stupidly simple to set up. They actually have a number of great amps that are there, so it's usually not a thing. However, since this is so easy. To answer your question, I could totally just show up with this one little pedal, run into the clean channel or the effects loop of an amp, and I have instant tone. I love this box. It's just great. The only thing is, actually, no, the control, there's a foot switch that allows you to toggle between the little things you keep. And by the way, that's the gainiest sound, which I just kind of cycled. Sorry. Let me include you in on the finger pressing. So there's a little button here that cycles through the different kind of modes or preset. No, they're modes of the gain. Great question. Cool. Awesome. So the next bit of this, the thing that's a giant drag at a guitar camp, is when people show up with their 4-cable method and they got to spend 10 minutes running the cables into the front end of the amp and the back of the amp, blah, blah, blah. Arguably, the VP4 is just large enough that it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. If you go up for a jam to sit in somewhere, you definitely don't want to be hauling that up on stage. In those situations where it's, let's say, at every one of Steve Vai's camps, every camper gets to jam with Steve. And in that situation, you do not come up with your stuff and go, hang on, Steve, let me plug my rig in while you're waiting. No. But for the jam rooms, the idea of having a little something, not a bad thing. I'm probably getting myself into trouble here. This is, so let's just draw a line of what's cool. This is in the gray area of probably not so cool. This, it's so simple. It's like if you show up, you could literally kind of walk up, plug in a power supply, and have the 2 cables, and you're good to go. I don't think anybody's going to get particularly pissed at you. Another thing that would be really great to have would be something like the Andy Timmons at pedal. Again, something where you can kind of get a tone no matter what amp you're playing through. I think that's totally fair. And that's a great way to go. By the way, that's made by JHS. Okay, good. So thank you. So good morning to you. So I'm playing through the Rockman X100. And so this right here, first of all, that's just the kind of clean. Here's clean with chorus. Here's the next stage. With chorus. Next stage. With chorus. Next stage. With chorus. This is the new Rockman pedal. The good news and the bad news is I'm inching closer and closer to saying it's the best pedal I've ever used. I can't, when it comes to mind, think of anything, with the singular exception of my original Big Muff. This pedal, as I said a little earlier in the broadcast, when I was studying with Joe Satriani, Joe had a Big Muff, and so I went out and found one, and that was an integral part of my kind of learning. Getting my I've lost the ability to play. Closer. All right, there you go. So getting my legato game going, that's where that pedal, that'll happen, as well as getting my picking together. So that pedal changed my life. So it was the right pedal at the right time. And not unlike this, it had a ton of sustain, and it had this kind of a creaminess to it. And that's kind of, that's where I kind of learned the fast. So this has enough of that type of thing going on. And it also... Oh, wait, hold on, there we go. Got a nice little thing. You can back it off a little bit. Doesn't totally clean up, but if I add a little bit of the secret sauce there, hang on, a little bit of secret sauce. No secret sauce. And that's what's great about playing with the delay like that, is you can kind of go, all right, well, how do I learn to take and not have any of it. Because you get a little extra grease, but and how do you learn to kind of find that same greasiness without it? There's a tightness that can, if you're not careful, feel a little stiff. So it's kind of learning to kind of with a sound that's tight, learn to kind of loosen up, and you have to really kind of learn to get loosey-goosey with your time. But again, that's what's neat about the gear, is it really informs you about things about your playing. Also using the less gain setting. And it's just kind of learning to get that feel where you get, again, that same relaxation. It just takes work. But I love work. All right. Great question. Hope that answered that effectively, Albert. You know you want one. All right. Nandini, excellent. I love that. Thank you so much. Excellent. Mike, awesome. Thank you so much. I always appreciate the feedback, especially coming from you. Excellent. Mr. Turvey, what's going on? Well, you kind of missed a delay and reverb and all that. So thank you, Sonia. So Tonex would also be a great choice for a guitar camp as well. So that's a great suggestion there. So thank you for that. Raphael, what's going on, my man? Thank you so much. I have a guitar of yours that we got to get to you. I think somebody's calling me from Facebook. I've never had that happen during a live stream. I wonder who it is. Hold on. I'm kind of curious. Nope. I can't take my buddy's call. All right. So let me get back to this. All right. Back to our previously scheduled program. All right. So your guitar. Steve, what's going on, my man? Great to see you. Hello, hello. With my great pleasure. By the way, conversely, if you're trying to get, I got to go in just a hot second. John, by the way, great to see you. I hope everything's going great in San Clemente. I have to be a little bit careful in that I am in the Kramer Gibson Epiphone world these days. That's a great question. I do not know what's in here. My guess is that these may be Seymour Duncans, but I don't know. But this guitar is money. So let me jump back to this comment that I had a minute ago. So what I was trying to do was take this little kind of where you get it, this extra bit of grease. That little bit of greasing. But then you got to go, how do you find with a tone that's kind of tight? And if you notice in both those instances, and again, note to self, what I did was I went for less gain. So the interesting, this is a... Now there what I'm doing, I did it but with my right hand. That's what. Well, I guess what. All right, hey, I've got a lesson I need to jump to, and I need just a minute to prep for that. Phil Traina, too. Holy cow! This has been, first of all, thank you so much, everybody who's tuned in. Phil Traina, you are a legend. Great to see you at NAMM. Also known as the Gear Concierge. This has been so much fun, so thank you for enduring the madness, and thank you for all the great questions and all the great feedback, and just so many of my favorite people. So thank you for hanging out. Thank you for being part of my life. I always end by copious amounts of gratitude, but that's exactly how I feel, and I can't say it with enough strength of emotion, because ultimately, the lessons that I learn over and over and over and over. Oh, thank you, Griffin. Over and over and over are the lessons of community and people, right? Thank you, Griffin. I will take this upstairs, but it's nice to have it as a prop. So, between Griffin and Phil, people are filling my cup literally, but figuratively. The longer I'm in the music business, it's been a really special week for me on a number of different levels. I had a chance to go see Dream Theater, and I got a chance to see the band. I had a chance to hang out with a bunch of my favorite people, including a number of the people that are on the crew. And I remember as I got ready to leave, and I said to the guys, I said, I had as much fun hanging out with you guys after the show as I did seeing the show. And the show basically lit a fire underneath my guitar playing, but also just was filled with so much great emotion for me just being in the receiving part of it. So I just want to say thank you. There we go. Thank you very much, so to JB and Cool Rose. Thank you very much. JB is a phenomenal pickup. I'm a DiMarzio endorser, but before I was a DiMarzio endorser, the Duncan JB was my go-to pickup on my number one guitar. So excellent. Thanks for that. Chris, love you to death. You know that. Time to tweak my patch delays. Been shaved into it. Love that. In a good way. Brett, thank you so much. Always a pleasure, and I love your questions. Steve, thank you so much. I do not have an album update other than to say I am time boxing. There is this book that is great that I'm actively out working on. I'm gonna probably start dropping singles sooner than later. I'm sorry not to have an update, but I'm actually working on both albums. But the short answer is, oh my word, is that I'm creating a path for all the things that I'm working on, which means having a really good plan so they all fit together. And it's a tapestry of things kind of coordinated. And I'm taking my time to make sure every little piece of it, even if it doesn't turn out exactly right, the planning of it is that if it goes remotely close to plan, everything unfolds in an intelligent way. And there's some things I'm doing around brands that I can't really talk about. You've already seen some of my work potentially show up on collabs on the Mesa Boogie Instagram and Facebook. So more of that type of thing, without saying any more than that, is very important. And that helps expand the footprint such that when I put out these albums and start dropping singles, that footprint is bigger. I'm also actively working on this 15-minute fundamentals thing, which is going to be a very important thing. And then there's also this Riggs course, which will probably come out before the 15-minute fundamentals. All right. So first of all, the funny thing is this morning, one of the things that I did, is it still up? No, it's not. I happen to be on YouTube, and there's somebody, and in this particular case, it didn't bother me. They uploaded my first album, which is the Doppler Effect. So the album was called Ground Zero, but I think we've revisited that enough. So that's not going to be at this time, but I do appreciate that. Both the red shift and the blue shift. There we go. Thanks so much for that, my man. All right. Much love. Thank you so much for hanging out today. What a great time. And again, you fill my cup. The amazing thing is that, I love the giving part of these shows, but I always feel like my tank ends up more full than giving out. And that is something that's very unique to what I have the privilege of doing. And I'm so grateful for that. So thank you. I'll see you next time.